Well, it's Friday, so it's time for me to catch up on some news stories that, well, some are older than just this week, but whatever. So, David Goyer, who wrote the Batman movies for Nolan and then Man of Steel for Zack, keep wanting to say Snack Cider. Sorry. But he wrote Man of Steel, coming out of Nolan's trilogy, which Nolan was approached to produce a Superman film, and, you know, the rest is history there. But basically, he did this interview with the Happy, Sad, and Confused podcast and, added a little more to the background story, which basically confirms what most always suspected, that the doom for the DCEU was constant interference and 11th hour changes. And this guy only did Man of Steel, so right off the bat you can see the problems, and of course their obsession with catching up with Marvel, which means they weren't willing to put in the time and work it takes to make the movies that would build a DC shared universe in the way that Marvel did, and just saying we're going to do it differently. Well, why do it differently when Marvel was successful? Because so many films had already been done by the time they start Man of Steel. So you were behind no matter what you did. But had they had any insight at all, the likelihood that Marvel could fade, with or without woke interference, which of course was its doom. But nevertheless, you want something else, and if you take a different bent, and a lot of that was looked at, well, maybe the darker take and more serious take would be the offering for it. But it never got a chance to breathe, because they jumped from, it would be like jumping from Iron Man immediately into Infinity War is kind of what they wanted to do. And so the quote comes, "I know the pressure we were getting from Warner Brothers, which was, we need our MCU. We need our MCU." And I was like, let's not run before we walk, Goyer said. And he's absolutely right. The other thing that was difficult at the time was there was this revolving door of executives at Warner Brothers in D.C. Every 18 months, someone new would come in. We were just getting whiplash. Every new person was like, we're going to go bigger. He continues, "I remember at one point, the person running Warner Brothers at the time had this release that pitched the next 20 movies over for the next 10 years. But none of them had been written yet. It was crazy how much architecture was being built on air. This is not how you build a house." So, and some of that was really, they released a bunch of titles that they were going to do. The Flash, and of course, Aquaman and Wonder Woman got made, and The Flash eventually. There was going to be a Cyborg movie. They introduced Cyborg would get one, and all that. And then, of course, the Justice League films. I don't think they ever actually said Man of Steel 2 until just recently, when people thought Henry was back, including Henry. And then less than a month later, never mind. But this idea of the 10-year plan, in and of itself, of a basic outline, meaning here's a point we get to, and what's the source material that you could choose from. With Marvel, they went with Infinity War. It's not like they had it completely figured out. It's got to go here. It's got to go there. But it gives them a framework by which to have their shared story. At the same time, the balance has to be that the individual movies can stand on their own, which is difficult to do. But when you keep it at the teases here and there, Easter eggs that the average moviegoer may not even really pick up on, Marvel fans would. And then the end credit scene, which they, originated, would give you the hint of, well, next time on Marvel Universe, and you go into Captain America or whatever. And that's how they could have done it here. The follow-up for Superman should have just been another Superman movie, and then get to work on your new Batman, and so on, and you go from there. But they didn't do that. They just jumped and crammed everything in one movie, and one movie could not do what Marvel did with, 4 or 5 at that point. So that was always the problem, and Goyer pretty much confirms that. Now, 10-year plan, gee, that sounds familiar. Wherever heard that recently? Well, that's the idea behind Gunn's shared universe approach to DC and his reboot. Gunn keeps confusing things. And it's been stumble after stumble only in announcements and trying to shepherd the remaining DCEU films out. And it's just been one mess after another. The films in and of themselves are bad on their own, give or take some things. They didn't really bother me as much as I expected them to. The Shazam movie was not as good as the first one, but it wasn't that bad. But nobody was interested in it. And a large part of being hurt was the announcement that it no longer matters. And God knows what was supposed to be in it. The original lineup, it was supposed to follow the Flash. The reason their costumes looked different was because the Flash had changed the universe and all that. All that got scrapped. So, so what was cut out or not? Who knows? Maybe not. But you know. And then you get to the Blue Beetle, which is not that bad. But there's not enough excitement there. There's nothing to build on. And plus, you said it's not really a part of anything. And then he says, oh, it's actually the first character of the DCU. Well, that's not what his intention was. So obviously that was not true. But the actor may stick around and maybe they'll find something for him later. But the movie didn't do as well as they thought it would, or thought it could. But being knocked down by 2 movies in its stead on its way, created a problem. But it's also been made part of a dead-end universe. And then finally Aquaman will show up, and, well, it doesn't look good. So what's the deal? Is Blue Beetle still there? The constant thing of a reboot, which I could respect and understand on some level, but no, people are staying around. So the constant going to Gunn for clarity keeps happening. So someone on Twitter, I think it was Twitter, it might have been Threads or something, but anyway, yeah, I think it was Threads. Surprising anyone's still on that. But anyway, James Gunn responded to a question. He says, you said DC Studios movies and canon, he spelled canon wrong, start with Superman Legacy. I and many others are still confused. Are the returning actors playing new versions of the same characters? Is this a J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson situation? Which, that would have been good too. You could have rebooted Superman and keep Henry, and you could. That business of it, he aged out of the role for what he wanted to do, it just doesn't hold water. But anyway, he says nothing is canon until Creature Commandos, that being the cartoon, next year. A sort of aperitif. I'm stupid. I don't know the word. To the DCU, and then a deeper dive into the universe with Superman Legacy. After that, it's a very human drive to want to understand everything all the time. But I think it's okay to be confused on what's happening in the DCU, since no one has seen anything from the DCU yet. Well, you said Blue Beetle was the first character. All right, so yes, the best take would be, yes, I'm rebooting it, but the first universe has got to complete itself before I do. So I probably shouldn't have said anything other than I'm taking over DC. I'm looking forward to the projects we're going to do. But in the meantime, there's a whole bunch of DC movies this summer, and check them out. And that's probably how you should have played it. I mean, the announcement of Henry Cavill and that sort of thing, I suppose, yeah. But that still would have given you clues that, yeah, it's a reboot. But anyway, someone asked about Blue Beetle. I'm wondering, how does the Blue Beetle movie actor factor in at this point in time? In the past, you had said it was included in the new DCU, but some statements are conflicting. Well, no kidding. Will it have any relation to future projects, i.e. the Booster Gold show? There's going to be a Booster Gold show. He said, Sholo Merduena will continue playing Blue Beetle in the DCU, as Viola Davis will be Amanda Waller and John Cena will be Peacemaker. So that means, and he never outright said there's no Peacemaker 2. It says just more down the road. They're going to get a Viola Davis show first, and then Peacemaker. So something, and that's more of his pull and call, I guess. I don't know. Because a full-on reboot, everybody's new. would be better. But basically, it's just no Henry Cavill and no Ben Affleck. And maybe Jason Momoa will be switched to Lobo instead of Aquaman. And the rumor is that this goes back and forth over Gal Gadot, and that she may stay as Wonder Woman. I'm dubious of it still, unless they really start work on the Wonder Woman 3 movie. Because the only project they announced wasn't a Wonder Woman project. It was an Amazon's project, too. A Game of Thrones of Amazon's, which, yeah, I'm not sure about that. But that's the only thing announced. So, yeah, we'll see, but it doesn't sound good. So, other things that Goyer went into, back to him, was apparently Leonardo DiCaprio was wanted as the Riddler for the third Nolan Batman film. And it says, well, the studio really wanted it, but Nolan didn't want to just slap something in like that. He wanted to build a creative story around Bruce Wayne's journey through these 3 films, and didn't want it put on him. But that he initially wasn't so keen on Bane being the villain either, but I guess eventually he came around to it. The other story, apparently, is Christian Bale hates Leonardo DiCaprio. Didn't want him in the film. But that doesn't fully explain why there's no Riddler. So it might have been more to the point that Nolan thought Bane made a better villain for where he wanted to go. And Goyer goes on a bit about how this is more like Rocky III, where Batman is getting older and he has to take on this brute and that sort of thing. So, but I mean, in the case of the Riddler, I suppose it could have been that, you know, it's more, that would have been more of a mental battle between the wits of the two rather than anything physical. So I guess they thought Bane would make a better character there, but that's about all there is to that. And finally, Goyer revealed he wrote a script for a Star Wars movie that Guillermo del Toro was going to do. And he said, it was pretty cool, but the Star Wars story stuff all came crashing down after the results of Solo. And that's true. Which is kind of sad, because their best film that Disney Star Wars did was a Star Wars story movie, which was Rogue One, but Solo bombed. Well, Solo paid the price for the sins of Last Jedi. I will always hold to that, and that was that. And Solo is not a great film. It's got a lot of stupid in it, but it's nowhere near as destructive and terrible as Last Jedi was. But that's what happened. So who knows? This was supposed to have been a Jabba the Hutt movie. And there had been talk around Buzz that there was this Mos Eisley movie that they wanted to do. And it sounds like that's what the Jabba the Hutt movie would have been. I thought it might have been the Boba Fett movie that they were working on that eventually became Mandalorian. But it appears that more emphasis on Jabba the Hutt and the criminal world of Star Wars and that sort of thing. So, you know, it probably might have been all right, you know, if these were kind of just done and these offshoots left alone, you know, Disney would accidentally get another one that's good. But, yeah, you know, they decided to scrap those because of, you know, Solo paid the price for Last Jedi, and that's just the way it is. So, finally, I guess the last trailer for the specials of Doctor Who came along. Well, I saw it, and the primary focus of it in this one, there's been quite a few teases and whatnot, is to, you know, revisit what became of Donna Noble and that business of her. She had to be forced to forget her adventures with the Doctor. Because if she remembered, then she would remember all the Doctor's knowledge that's in her brain, and it would kill her. So as long as she doesn't remember him, she's fine. And there's a couple of scenes where you can see Donna's mother trying to stop him from seeing her. And the problem for him is that now he looks exactly like he did when they were together. So If, well, a little older, but, you know, same guy, a different suit. But that begs the question of what would be the reason for him to return to her. Why does he need to do it? And I guess it would have to do with the manipulations of the villain, which most people suspect is a new version of the Celestial Toymaker, played by Neil Patrick Harris. And a good possibility. He looks very godlike in some of the quick scenes in the trailer, and that could possibly be the deal. Yeah, but I would hope that there's some explanation more, probably along those lines, and I would suspect it would have to be, of why he's encountering Donna at this point when he would know better to avoid her. And it compounded by the fact that she would recognize him because of what he looks like. And yet he had 3, okay, really 2, but I guess we'll count the 3rd, incarnations since then that she would not have recognized. And didn't bother to do jack squat about it. So, the idea, I mean, there's nothing he could do. Now suddenly he can. So why is he risking this? And of course, well, hopefully it's dealt with rather than just, hey, look, it's Donna. Oh, look, it's, you know, that kind of thing. Remember when it was cool and stuff? So anyway, so the 3 specials are on their way. The Star Beast, which don't think that has anything to do with the original Alien script, which is what it was called. But I don't know if it has anything to do with the Doctor Who comic book story, but I guess we'll find out. Wild Blue Yonder and the giggle at the end, where they giggle and tell you, ha ha, bait and switch. Well, hopefully not, but odds are, well. And then it's on to Shudigatwa's Doctor, and then we'll have to wait and see how that turns out, huh? Yeah. So anyway, you know, trailers, you know, some of them can be really awful, and it could be the film or TV show is really good. Sometimes the trailers can be really spectacular and interesting, and then the actual show and film is awful crap. Don't know which is here. The trailer, I don't see it as bad, but doesn't really tell me a whole lot either. So it's not really telling me, oh my God, I can't wait to see this. No, it's not. But then again, I'm in a sour mood over Doctor Who, so it would take some doing to win me over. At best, you can hope for is you just get basic Doctor Who adventures from now on. As far as repairing the damage, I think they're just going to ignore it, which is a mistake, but I think that's the best one can hope for. There we go. Am I all caught up? Not really. There's plenty of other stuff, but I don't have the time for it. So, I don't know. For some reason, I picked these as the most important. Talk to you again soon.